Sayın Rektörüm, onur konuğumuz Profesör Sayın Norman Moore, Sayın Senato üyeleri, Sayın hocalarım ve değerli konuklarımız. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Fahri Doktora takdimi törenine hoş geldiniz. Bugün size Türkçe ve İngilizce olarak sunum yapacağım. Dear Rector, our honorary guest Professor Norman Moore, senators, academicians and distinguished guests. Welcome to Üsküdar University's Honorary Doctorate Presentation Ceremony. Today I speak in English and also in Turkish. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Senatosu, Psikiyatri Uzmanı Profesör Sayın Norman Moore'a Fahri Doktora unvanı verme kararı aldı. Bugün bu töreni gerçekleştirmek üzere toplanmış bulunuyoruz. Öncelikle sizlere üniversite ve hastanemiz ile ilgili filmleri izletmek istiyoruz. Üsküdar University Senate has cordially decided to present Professor Norman Moore an honorary doctorate. We have gathered here today to conduct the ceremony for this purpose. Firstly, we will start with presenting our introductory films.
Bu serüvene bir iddiamız var diyerek başladık. İtiraf edelim, biz bilimde büyük iddiaları severiz. İnsanı anlamaya çalışmak gibi mesela. Ya da bilim üretirken ilkeleri gerçekleştirmek gibi. Bu iddialarımızın en zorlu olanıysa insanı anlama çabamız. Bunun farkındayız. En başından beri insanı anlama isteğimiz, davranış bilimleri alanındaki çalışmalarımızın temeliydi. Ve bu bilimsel bakışı Türkiye'ye yaymak, genç nesillere aktarmak, dünyaya anlatmak, bir ekol oluşturmak, hatta üniversite kurmak bizi en çok heyecanlandıran şey. Şimdi bu heyecanın gerçeğe dönüştüğü noktadayız. 15.000'e yakın öğrencimiz, 350'den fazla akademik kadromuzla bu yolda ilerlerken özgürlükçü, çoğulcu, eşitlikçi, katılımcı olmayı benimsedik. Özgür düşüncenin, katılımcılığın, eşit ve çok sesliliğin olduğu bir ortamda bilim üretmenin önemine inandık. Her şeyden önemlisi, iyi insan olmanın ötesinde bir şey olamayacağı bilincini hep taşıdık. İnsani değerlerin toplumları yücelten, bilimde ve kültürde gelişmesini sağlayan özellikler olduğunu bilerek, toplumu ve insanı anlayan bir sorumlulukla bilim üretiyoruz. 5 yıldır iddialarımızdan ödün vermeden, dünyayı değiştirecek bilimsel projelerin peşindeyiz. Amerika Başkanı Obama'nın başlattığı Brain projesinin Türkiye ve Orta Doğu temsilciliğini aldık. Türkiye'nin ilk bilim ve fikir festivalini düzenliyoruz. Nöro pazarlama çalışmalarını ilk başlatan üniversite olarak kaynaklara geçiyoruz. Türkiye'deki ilk tasavvuf araştırmaları enstitüsünü kurarak tasavvufu davranış bilimleri çerçevesinde akademik platforma taşıyoruz. Dünyanın 3. Nöropsikofarmakoloji Araştırma Merkezi'ni kurarak bilimin uygulama alanları içinde önemli adımlar atıyoruz. Pozitif psikolojinin Türkiye'deki ilk akademik uygulayıcısı olarak bilimde uluslararası gelişmelerin ülkemizdeki öncülüğünü yapmaktan gurur duyuyoruz. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Kuluçka Merkezi Brain Park'ta öğrencilerimizin parlak fikirlerini hayata geçirerek bilimi yeni nesillere aktarıyoruz. Bilimsel yayınlarımız ve Ar-Ge çalışmalarımızda geleceğe ışık tutuyoruz. Biz tercihimizi insanı anlamaktan yana kullanıyoruz. Çünkü biz insanı anlayarak dünyayı değiştirebilecek bilim üretmenin inancını taşıyoruz. İnsanı anla, dünyayı değiştir. Üsküdar Üniversitesi.
Every human being is born the same, with the same number of brain cells. Each person firstly develops a sense of touch while still in the mother's womb. There, feelings begin to form. Feelings are processed up to the finest detail in there, and we get ready to understand the world. And every human is both the same and different after being born, grows through being finely processed, differentiates. Feelings, intelligence, brain grow bigger. They grow and evolve. Us too. For nearly 20 years, we discovered thousands of different details in thousands of people. We progressed a little bit more with each different person, and we went a little further each time. We have always been careful to raise the level of mental health of the community and contribute solutions to the problems that are related to mental health. We use the latest technology with scientific references. We became a fully fledged brain-derived hospital by adding neurology to our fields of expertise. On the way to becoming Europe's second brain clinic, we have graciously aligned the milestones that prepared us today. On March 2017, we became the second brain hospital in Europe in our new building named NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi'nde. We started our journey as a general hospital focused on the brain within a 30,000 square meter closed area, 160 bed capacity, fully equipped operating rooms and intensive care unit, and we are expanding the number of our experts in neurosurgery, general surgery, otorhinolaryngology, cardiology, chest diseases, infectious diseases, and pediatric neurology. As being Europe's second brain hospital, we created an infrastructure with globally accepted treatments from neuromodulation therapy to functional surgery and electronic implant therapy. We have 1A operating rooms that provide many treatment fields ranging from robotic neuronavigation surgery, aneurysm surgery to Parkinson and epilepsy surgeries. In our hospital, we offer the first and only 1A ultra-clean operating room equipment of Turkey, approved by an independent accredited organization, which obtains superior technological infrastructure facilities that support surgical operations in all branches. We serve intensive care patients of all levels with our 16-bed fully equipped intensive care unit. In our new building, we give close attention to provide patients comfort and obtain our scientific and ethical approach in every single detail. We provide high comfort for patients and their relatives without compromising safety with our standard and A-type suite rooms. From the door handles in the room to the shower heads, we designed all the furniture with the thought of keeping the safety of the patients in the foreground. We have created private visiting rooms to protect patients' privacy. We have winter gardens and daytime lounges on every floor to make our patients feel at home. We made a visible difference through our high technology. For nearly 20 years, we have always been thoughtful to offer better treatment, improve our science, change people's worlds, and to simply make them better. To provide the methods and conditions envisioned by contemporary science, we have become the second brain hospital in Europe, aiming to use the possibilities of advanced technology. We got inspired by the brain to achieve excellence. NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi'nde.
Sayın konuklarımız, bugünkü programımız Üsküdar Üniversitesi Nörobilim Anabilim Dalı Başkanı ve NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi Nöroloji Uzmanı Prof.Dr. Oğuz Tanrıdağ ile Üsküdar Üniversitesi Rektörü ve NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı Prof.Dr. Nevzat Tarhan'ın açılış konuşmaları ile devam edecek. Üsküdar Üniversitesi İnsan ve Toplum Bilimleri Fakültesi Dekanı Prof.Dr. Mehmet Bağdur'un Fahri Doktora takdim gerekçesini okumasını takiben cübbe giyme seremonisine geçilecek. Son olarak Sayın Profesör Norman Moore'dan Alzheimer hastalığında monoklonal antikor infüzyonu konferansını dinleyeceğiz. Dear guests, our program today will start opening speeches by Üsküdar University Head of the Department of Neurology and NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi'nde neurologist Prof.Dr. Oğuz Tanrıdağ and the President of the Üsküdar University, CEO of NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi, Professor Nevzat Tarhan. After the opening speeches, the Head of Department of Humanities and Social Science, Professor Nevzat Tarhan, read Üsküdar University Senator's consultum regarding the honorary doctorate. Right after this, the vesting ceremony will begin and Professor Norman Moore will deliver his presentation on monoclonal antibody infusion in Alzheimer's disease. Sayın konuklarımız, açılış konuşmasını yapmak üzere Üsküdar Üniversitesi Nörobilim Anabilim Dalı Başkanı ve NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi Nöroloji Uzmanı Prof.Dr. Sayın Oğuz Tanrıdağ'ı kürsüye arz ediyorum. Dear guests, I kindly ask Üsküdar University Head of the Department of Neurology and NPİSTANBUL Beyin Hastanesi neurologist Professor Oğuz Tanrıdağ to join us on stage to make the opening speech.
Hello, I would like to welcome you. My name is Oğuz Tanrıdağ. I'm working here as a chief neurologist and also head of the Department of Neuroscience in the Üsküdar University. I've been waiting for a long time to meet somebody from the place where I worked and stayed 2 years for more than 30 years ago. I worked in Vanderbilt University for 2 years as a clinical fellow in Nashville, Tennessee. And I would like to introduce briefly our work here with respect to especially Alzheimer's disease. We are dealing with early diagnostic studies here in this hospital for Alzheimer's disease. We called brain checkup studies, including a quantitative EEG and neuropsychological testing and cranial MR, and with some blood testing. And we believe that early diagnosis in Alzheimer's disease is very important and crucial. And also we believe that most of the neurologists and psychiatrists do this type of studies because Alzheimer's disease do not produce any physical and neurological hard signs, and besides some mental disturbances. In order to catch early diagnosis Alzheimer's disease, we have to deal with sensitive neuropsychological testing and the other studies, because we believe that Alzheimer's disease produce some significant findings not in the early stages and mostly in middle or progressed stages. Therefore, we are very sensitive to approach this early testing and early diagnosis of this disease, and we are making progress to catch very early cases day by day. And I'm very honored to here to speak in front of you, and I would like to welcome you again from Tennessee, which is my second home place. Thank you.
Sayın hocamıza teşekkür ediyoruz. Şimdi de açılış konuşmalarını yapmak üzere Rektörümüz Prof.Dr. Sayın Nevzat Tarhan'ı kürsüye arz ediyorum. Thank you, Professor Tarhan. Dear guests, I would like to kindly ask our President, Professor Nevzat Tarhan, to join us on stage to make the opening speech.
Sayın Doktor Mur, değerli misafirler, senatomuzun değerli üyeleri, önce hepinize hoş geldiniz diyorum. Bugün toplanmamız biliyorsunuz bu özel bir tören, özel bir konumda ve aynı zamanda bu Alzheimer ile ilgili son çalışmasıyla ilgili bize bir konferans verecek. Biz dün akşam Kemal Hoca'nın misafiri olarak Ayhan Songar'ı 50. yılı değil mi? Cerrahpaşa'nın 50. yıl mezunları ve onun hatırasına rahmetli Ayhan Songar'ın anısına bir TMS ile ilgili bir toplantı yapıldı. TMS nöromodülasyonla ilgili. Dün akşam ben de oradaydım. Normalde orada Amerikalı'nın o toplantı için gelmişti ve bu vesileyle biz buraya geldi ve elektronörofizyolojide çok katkısı olan bir bilim adamımız. Özellikle ECNS çalışmaları, işte Elektrik Clinical Neuroscience Derneği'nin aktif çalışanlarından kendisi ve özellikle CV'sini senato üyelerimiz okudular ve gerçekten çok etkileyici, çok atıf alan yayınları var. Bu konuda özellikle çok bilinmezken dünyada bu bilişimin, dijital teknolojilerin çok yaygın olmadığı zamandan başlayarak beyin analog kayıtlarının üzerinde çalışarak şu andaki dijital kayıtlarla, haritalamalar çıkarılarak tanıyla, psikiyatrik tanılarla hastalıkların tedavisinde neler yapılabilir? O konuda çok önemli bir bilim emekçisi kendisi. Biz Kemal Hocamızın teklifi üzerine biz bu konuda CV'sini inceledikten sonra senato üyelerimizin takdiriyle böyle bir Fahri Doktora ünvanı vermek kendisine sunmak istedik. Ayrıca benim şahsi olarak da ilk tanışmam 2001 yılında olmuştu. 2001'de ECNS'in uydu sempozyumu vardı. Marmara'da yapmıştık. O zaman kendisine tanıştık. Ve daha sonra ECNS'in board üyeliğine geçtik. Seçilmiştik beraber Kemal Hoca ile beraber. Orada kendisinin o board meetinginde nasıl diplomatik bir management yaptığını da gördüm. Yani oradaki toplantılarda farklı görüşteki insanlar arasında çok güzel yönetim tarzı vardı. O da beni çok etkilemişti aynı zamanda. Yani onun bilimsel emekçiliği dışında ve ben sertifikalarım içerisinde ECNS katılımlarıyla ilgili kendisinin imzası olan sertifikada benim sertifikalar arasındadır. Kendisini bu nedenle hem dünya elektronörofizyolojiye katkıları açısından hem de Türkiye'deki bilimsel çalışmalarına hep destek vermiştir. İstanbul'a belki sayısız defalar geldi. Ne zaman davet ettiysek geldi. Yani bizi Türk dostu bir insan. Askerliğini Kıbrıs'ta yapmış. Bu nedenle kendisine bizim güzel bir jestimiz olsun hem de hak ettiği bir ünvanı vermiş oluruz diye düşündük. Bu nedenle ben senato üyelerimize de teşekkür ediyorum bu konuda olumlu katkı sağladıkları için. Ben tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Programa katılan arkadaşlarımıza ve aynı zamanda Doktor Mor'un bizim teklifimizi kabul etmesi için ayrıca teşekkür ediyorum.
Sayın Rektörümüze teşekkür ediyoruz. Sayın konuklarımız, Fahri Doktora törenine geçmeden önce Profesör Norman Moore ile ilgili bir sunumumuz bulunuyor. Ancak bu sunumdan önce konuğumuz ile ilgili kısa bir bilgi paylaşmak istiyorum. Norman Seymour, MD, is Professor and Director of Research at the Department of Psychiatry, Quayle College of Medicine, East Tennessee University, USA. He was Chief Editor of Clinical EEG and Neuroscience for over 10 years, during which time the impact factor increased significantly. He was one of the scientific advisors for the international multi-million-dollar iSpot studies of depression and ADHD. In many important multi-site studies, he acted as principal investigator at his site. His was one of only 15 research teams chosen to investigate and validate florbetapir as a radioligand for PET-employed brain scans. This PET scan is as accurate as anatomy in determining the plaque load and diagnosis Alzheimer's disease. He has participated in many monoclonal antibody studies of Alzheimer's disease. These have shown that plaque can be removed from the brain. Clinical improvement was demonstrated in mild but not moderate Alzheimer's dementia. Current studies are concentrating on the benefits of removing plaques from patients with mild cognitive impairment before they develop Alzheimer's disease. He is currently a member of the research committee of the Clinical TMS Society, where he is leading a study of maintenance transcranial magnetic stimulation treatment of severe depression. We thank our rector for his speech. Dear guests, firstly, we have a short presentation about Professor Norman Moore.
Amerikalı psikiyatrist Profesör Norman Moore, 1 Ağustos 1938'de doğdu. Tıp alanındaki lisans eğitimini 1964 yılında İrlanda'da Queen's Üniversitesi'nde tamamladı. Aynı üniversitede doktora yaptıktan sonra Londra'da Royal Air Force'da psikiyatri üzerine eğitimler aldı. 1990 yılında Harvard Üniversitesi'nde biyomedikal araştırma yönetiminde ileri eğitim programını bitirdi. Amerikan Psikiyatri Derneği ve Royal College Psikiyatri Derneği tarafından verilmiş 4 yüksek onur derecesi bulunan Profesör Moore, ayrıca Zihinsel Hastalık Araştırma Ödülü, Örnek Psikiyatrist Ödülü, Yılın Seçkin Araştırmacısı Ödülü, Tıp Öğrenci Eğitiminde Mükemmellik Ödülü olmak üzere farklı kurumlarca verilen ödüllerin de sahibidir. 98 bilimsel makalesi bulunan Profesör Moore, halen Amerika'daki East Tennessee State Üniversitesi'nde psikiyatri profesörlüğü ve psikiyatri departmanının araştırma bölümünün direktörlüğünü yürütmektedir. Professor Norman Moore was born on 1st of August 1938. He completed his undergraduate studies in medicine at Queen's University, Ireland in 1964. He received his doctorate degree in the same university and received training in psychiatry at the Royal Air Force, London. Professor Moore attended the program for advanced training in biomedical research management in Harvard School of Public Health. Professor Moore holds 4 honors from American Psychiatric Association and Royal College of Psychiatrists. He also received the awards of Mental Illness Research, Exemplary Psychiatrist, Distinguished Researcher of the Year, and recognition for excellence in medical student education. Professor Moore has taken part in the management of several professional associations. He was a scientific advisor for pneumology and neuronetric by technical companies. He was the chief editor of Clinical EEG and Neuroscience and served as a member of the editorial boards of Journal of Primary Care Psychiatry, Clinical EEG and Neuroscience, and International Journal of Neural Systems. Professor Moore, who has written about 98 articles so far, is currently Professor and Director of Research in the Department of Psychiatry at East Tennessee State University in USA.
On April 28, 2017, to present an honorary doctorate to American psychiatrist Professor Norman Moore due to his work in neuropsychiatric and electrophysiological studies in clinical fields, showing his support to Turkish electrophysiology, delivering his experiences to young colleagues in the best way, in addition to his contributions in the field of literature and executing important representational studies in the international arena. Thank you.
Mithat hocamıza teşekkür ediyoruz ve sırada Fahri Doktora töreni bulunmaktadır. Öncelikle takdimde bulunmak üzere rektörümüz Prof.Dr. Sayın Nevzat Tarhan'ı sahneye davet ediyorum. Ve Fahri doktorasını almak üzere Profesör Norman Moore'u sahneye davet ediyorum. Thank you, Professor Baydur. Next, we have the honorary doctorate ceremony to honor Professor Norman Moore. I would like to kindly ask Professor Nevzat Tarhan to come on stage for the presentment. Now, I kindly ask Professor Norman Moore to join us on stage to receive his honorary degree. Evet hocam, şimdi takdim edeceğim hocamızı.
I think I should say a few words before I talk about the Alzheimer's research. I'm kind of in disbelief about what's happening here. I don't really feel I deserve the honor, but I appreciate so much my colleagues that they feel differently.
Okay.
And I really enjoy their company and also the collaborations that we've done together.
Ya, bu ödülü çok hak ettiğimi düşünmüyorum ama bana bu ödülü layık gören arkadaşlara ve beraber çalıştığım buradaki arkadaşlara çok teşekkür etmek istiyorum.
We have a saying in English about people's wildest dreams, and when I said to my wife, I never in my wildest dreams dreamt that this kind of honor would be made to me. And I said, did you ever in your wildest dreams have such a thought? And she waited for a few moments, and then she said, well, to be honest, you never appear in my wild dreams.
Evet, şimdi bizim İngilizce'de wildest dream, yani böyle en çılgın hayalleri diye bir deyimimiz vardır. Ben de eşime dedim ki işte ben bunu hiç en çılgın hayalimde bile bu ödülü almak yoktu. Hani senin böyle bir öngörün var mıydı? O da dedi ki sen de benim en çılgın hayallerimde yoktun dedi.
But Professor Tarhan, I hope I'm addressing addressing you correctly, but you'll forgive me, I hope, if not. He brought some thoughts to my mind of things that I wouldn't have thought to mention to you, but you know, why am I here talking about Alzheimer's disease when I'm a psychiatrist and I've done most of my interesting research in electrophysiology? But the truth is that, as he said, I forget that you're translating. I better give you a chance.
Evet, burada bugün Alzheimer hastalığı hakkında konuşacağım ve kariyerimin aslında çok önemli bir kısmını elektrofizyoloji ile ilgili çalışmalarla geçirdim.
So I have to go right back to my days in the Royal Air Force when I worked in Cyprus, as was mentioned, but when I was in Cyprus, I had to do the neurology as well as the psychiatry. In our Royal Air Force, we had only one department of neuropsychiatry, which I really enjoyed.
Evet, ben askerliğimi Kıbrıs'ta yaparken orada iki tane, yani nöroloji ve psikiyatri ayrılmamıştı ve nörologlar ve psikiyatristler aslında tek bir bölümde çalışıyorduk. İşte Kıbrıs'ta bu Kraliyet Hava Kuvvetleri'nde askerliğimi yaparken orada nörologlarla birlikte nörolog ve psikiyatrist, yani nöropsikiyatrist olarak çalışma fırsatı buldum.
So although I'm not board certified or especially trained in neurology, I have had a lot of experience doing that kind of work.
Yani nörolog olmadım tabii hayatımın hiçbir zamanında. Bu alanda bir eğitim almadım ama nörologlarla birlikte çalışmamdan dolayı bu alanda çok şey öğrendim.
So for 3 years in Cyprus, I was actually seeing neurology patients and also reading EEGs.
Evet.
And
bu nedenle işte Kıbrıs'ta 3 sene boyunca EEG okudum ve nöroloji hastaları görmek durumunda kaldım.
And also when with the Air Force in Germany for 6 years, I also saw neurology patients and read EEGs.
Evet, daha sonra Almanya'ya geçtim. Orada da 6 sene boyunca nöroloji hastası gördüm ve EEG okudum.
And then when I went after I retired from the Air Force to the USA, I decided that it was time to get a qualification in reading EEGs, and I attended some courses, and I managed to pass the board certification for clinical EEG.
Evet, ancak işte hava kuvvetlerinden istifa edip ABD'ye döndükten sonra bu alanda resmi bir sertifikasyon alma olanağı bulabildim ve bazı kurslara katılıp EEG okuma sertifikası alabildim ABD'ye döndükten sonra.
So using that experience with colleagues, I did several studies of a flash evoked potential, visual potential, and we were able to show that the flash evoked potential, but not the pattern reversal, was delayed in Alzheimer's dementia, but not in other forms of dementia.
Sonra işte bu bilgileri uyandırılmış potansiyeller çalışmalarında kullandım ve bazı arkadaşlarımla beraber Alzheimer hastalığında flashla uyandırılmış görsel potansiyelleri çalıştık. Burada Alzheimer hastalarında flashla uyandırılmış görsel potansiyellerin gecikmiş olduğunu ve bulgunun diğer demans tiplerinde bulunmadığını fark ettik.
And thus, seeing lots of Alzheimer's patients, the opportunity arose to do the work that I'm going to talk about soon, and this was the path that led me to that point.
Bu yolla biraz sonra aslında bu bulgular biraz sonra yapacağım çalışmanın ön hazırlıkları oldu ve bu yolla ilerleyebildik.
And what we researchers had to deal with at that time was that even in ivory towers of expert physicians, everybody knew that out of every 100 patients that we diagnosed, we thought thoroughly, only 80% actually had the disease, and that would be proved when they were later subject to autopsy, and pathologists could look to see if they had the criteria in an autopsy of the plaques that are and the tangles that are diagnostic.
Evet, kendini en iyi tanı koyduğunu ileri süren ve herkese fil dişi kulelerden bakan en iyi klinisyenlerin bile tanılarında işte ancak %80 oranında doğruluk oranı olduğunu bugün biliyoruz ve bu hastaları eğer tanı koydukları herkese otopsi yaparsak %20'sinde aslında hatalı tanı koyduklarını görebiliyoruz.
So, as you can see, doing research on diagnostic tests or on medications or other treatments, if you start out knowing that 20 of the people in your 100 don't have the disease, they're not going to show up as being properly diagnosed by whatever test you're investigating. And equally, if you have treatments that you want to prove are effective, if you're starting out with 20 people who don't have the disease, they're not going to be helped by the medication.
Evet.
So,
burada tabii 100 kişiye tanı koyduğunuzda klinik pratiğinizde 20 tanesinin hatalı olduğunu mutlaka göz önünde bulmalısınız. Ayrıca bir tanının etkinliğini, bir tedavinin etkinliğini test ederken de eğer şans eseri bu 20 hatalı tanı koyduğunuz bireyi seçip çalışmaya alırsanız tabii ki de hiçbir fayda göremeyeceksiniz.
which is, I think, the best point to stop chatting like this and deliver the lecture. And I say thank you very much for this honor. It means a lot to me and to my wife. So I appreciate it very much.
Evet, bu onuru bana bahşettiğiniz için kendim ve eşim adına çok teşekkür ederim. Şimdi konuşmama geçeceğim.
Is there a laser pointer? Oh, good. Thank you. So, can you all hear me clearly? Shall we turn this one off?
Yeah,
Turn this one off. Okay. Well, I hope some of you will find some of the first slides of help and of interest, and the experts will forgive me for going over them, I hope. But this is a picture of Alzheimer and his life history and his family. And this is his patient that he examined and was the first person to describe the features of plaques and tangles that are diagnostic of Alzheimer's disease. And it was an interesting fact that he was working in a hospital in Frankfurt, and on the staff was a member of the staff that the medical people in the audience will remember as Nissl, and we have a stain called Nissl stain. And Alzheimer was wanting to study the brains of his patients. And when he studied them, the Nissl stain was one of the few things that he had as a means of research. And he collaborated with Nissl, and when this patient died, and he described her clinical features, which we would now recognize as Alzheimer's disease. What he found then was that the plaques and the tangles were showing up with the Nissl stain. So that was one interesting aspect of sort of the chance things that happen. But then, because of his work and the publication of his work, another famous person, Kraepelin, again, the psychiatrists in the room will be familiar with Kraepelin. And Kraepelin is a very honored figure in the history of psychiatry. He was the first person who came up with a diagnostic system for psychiatry. And the way that he just clinically divided patients was that the patients who were permanently ill with what we would now call schizophrenia were different than those who would recover and without treatment would recover and be ready to leave hospital. And he termed it as dementia precox, which is schizophrenia, actually we forgot about the dementia part of schizophrenia for many years, and now we've come right back to being aware that that's a big part of schizophrenia. And then the bipolar patients were the other group. We now realize that our diagnostic system is not really valid. It's the best we've got, and we've got to use it, and at least we can communicate with each other. But genetic studies and other studies are starting to throw light on the real divisions in psychiatry in the different illnesses. For example, we know that depression is not a single illness. There's lots of different categories within depression. And at the recent meeting I've attended on transcranial magnetic stimulation, a very interesting study came out where they took patients, all of whom had depression and had similar symptoms, couldn't be separated based on their symptoms. When they did functional MRI, they found different circuits in the brains of these patients that separated them into 4 groups. So that, if that proves to be replicated, it could be the first attempt of us to actually have subtypes of depression, which are shown already to determine which type of TMS treatment will actually cause remission or response to treatment. So these were the early days, and they made, this group of people made very good conclusions about their work. Now, this person is not famous. He was just the administrator. Well, I shouldn't say just, because I'm sure there's an administrator here. But he was an administrator in the hospital who went with these gentlemen to a lake near Munich, which was where they were based. So, again, many of you don't need to see this, but some of you might find it of help. So if you look at this brain, that's a normal brain, and this is an Alzheimer's brain. And the difference between the two are these huge spaces here, the sulci are very widened, and the brain tissue itself is very reduced in size. And the reason for that is that the brain tissue is being damaged by the plaque and tangles, and as it shrinks, it separates out like that. And also, when you look at the ventricles, the spaces inside the brain, they're also much larger than normal. And then what this shows us is that the first PET scans that were used to examine Alzheimer's patients were of FDG, which is actually a measure of glucose consumption. And you can see in a normal brain, the red and the yellow is an indication of activity. The brain is active because it's using up all this glucose. But Alzheimer's, look how there's big areas here where there's not this activity that would be in a normal brain. And it's typical for an Alzheimer's patient to have reduced activity in the temporal lobes and also in the frontal lobe. And then Pick's disease is a different kind of dementia where it's the frontal lobes and the temporal lobes that are primarily affected. In Alzheimer's, there's more change in the parietal lobe. So these are interesting pictures of one PET scan that was being used to separate out these different types of dementia. But this is also what Alzheimer would have seen when he did his Nissl stains. These are pictures of amyloid plaques, and I want to talk to you about the amyloid plaques, which is why I'm showing you this picture. So I wanted to tell you all about a study that we did, and this was, we were one of only 15 sites in the United States that were asked and given the honor of doing this study. It was quite a challenging study because what we had to do was find people, not necessarily patients and not necessarily Alzheimer's patients, to find people, say, in nursing homes or in hospices or actually in hospital, who were expected to die within 6 months. And we interviewed them, and they gave, so generous, these people, they gave us permission to do a PET scan while they were alive, and then after they died, allowed us to do an autopsy. And then what happened was that the findings of the PET scans, which covered healthy people when they died, you can't be that healthy if you die, but what I mean is they weren't suffering from a recognized disorder. Perhaps they'd die in a road accident or something like that, right through all kinds of psychiatric illness and non-psychiatric illness to then the Alzheimer's patients. But the PET scans were sent to radiologists without telling them which patients were which. And then the brain tissue was sent to pathologists, and they weren't told which patients were which. And they were asked to identify which of these tests indicated Alzheimer's disease. And the result of that study was that the PET scan was as accurate as an autopsy. So that was a big step forward. We're currently doing a study called IDEAS, and it's to do with looking at how do doctors like myself change treatment and diagnosis in our patients in our clinic when we have the opportunity to do this PET scan. And that study's underway, it's ongoing, and we don't know what the results will be, but it's really wonderful for me to get the PET scan done on these patients that I'm seeing clinically and having this result come back. Because if there's no, it's not a matter of no plaque. All of us over the age of 40 have an increase of plaque in our brains, but that's normal, that's just aging. The difference with an Alzheimer's patient is they have an overload of plaque. Like with high blood pressure, you can have, everybody has blood pressure, but it's only the ones who have an abnormally high blood pressure that are considered to have an illness. Anyway, that study resulted in the FDA approving this as a test to be used clinically. The problem is that the insurance companies are not paying for this test for us, and the IDEAS study is designed to collect information that we hope will convince the insurance companies that if we know the proper diagnosis early in the illness because of this test, that we'll actually save money in terms of unnecessary investigations and appropriate treatment. So we'll see how that study works out, but that's the purpose of it. So again, most of you will know what a PET scanner looks like, but that's the one that we were using for our studies. So then what do these PET scans look like when we get them back? And this is a normal, healthy brain. And what we're looking at is this radioligand, which is able to attach itself to plaques and then emit a signal. And so when you see, like down here, you see all this red and yellow, that's too much plaque. Well, here, it's all in the darker colors, and that's normal. So if the patient, if this person develops Alzheimer's disease, then this is what the brain would look like with all this high plaque load. And this down here is similar, but this is mild cognitive impairment. And all that mild cognitive impairment is, it's a memory loss that's measurable, but it's not active, it's not severe enough to actively interfere with activities of daily living. So people have a mild memory loss, it's measurable, it's there, but they can still do their hygiene, they can go shopping, they can find a way around town. And why we're interested in the mild cognitive impairment is we've learned that if we're going to move these plaques, the earlier we do it, the better. But look what the scan will show us. If this is mild cognitive impairment, but it looks like a normal brain, we can say, well, this patient with this mild memory loss is not developing Alzheimer's disease because there's no excess of plaque. But look at this patient who has mild cognitive impairment that looks just like an Alzheimer's patient. And so now we can separate our patient population that we're going to study in any way for treatment or diagnosis. We can run this test, as we actually do in our studies now, and the people who don't have the they look like a normal as opposed to ones with an excess. We only put these patients into our studies. When we did that study of the PET scan, after it was all completed, a friend of mine who I'd worked with several years before in another university sent me this email, and he said, "Hey Norman, that's great work you're doing up there, and congratulations on your paper in The Lancet." Well, I knew I had not published a paper in The Lancet, so I thought he was wrong. But he's such a competent person, I thought I better just have a look. And I did a search in PubMed of the Fahri and my name, and lo and behold, there was a paper that I hadn't been told about that was published by the company that gave us the opportunity to be one of the sites. And what they kindly did was they had the authors' names, and not immediately under the authors' names, they had the names of the people like myself who had done the work. Well, that was very nice, but I thought it was rather fun to discover I had a paper in The Lancet that I didn't know about. I don't mean that I had it, but they did. So this is the IDEAS study. It's called Imaging Dementia, Evidence for Amyloid Scanning. And as I say, it's looking at what we doctors do if we have this test available. When my research assistant came to me with a document to sign, she handed it to me, and it was the consent form for this study. And at the bottom, I was supposed to sign it. I said, "Well, you're not sending me for a PET scan, are you?" Because I thought that that was the reason that we had the consent form. But actually, the people being studied were us doctors, not the patients. We were studying what we were doing. So I was signing the consent form for my part of the study. And what the study is going to do is it's going to look at all this large number of patients. They have to be 65 and over, and they have to be ill for 2 years, and there'll be 200 sites. And it's look at the cost of this study. It's a huge, costly study, but it'll be worth it in the end. And by the way, it's being funded by the Alzheimer's Association and by different pharmaceutical companies who are all making products now like fluorobutapir. There are many plaque imaging radioligands. And I just said that there are other companies. These are just follow-up. This is the one that we studied, but since it was approved by the FDA, these others have appeared, and I'm sure there are further ones since I did that slide. And what they do in this IDEA study, they will see how our management of patients changed. Did we admit as many people to hospital? Did our patients go to the ER room as often? So we expect to find differences in our practice because of the PET scan. So then the other part of Alzheimer's, which is not talked much about because we don't know as much about it, but the tangles are the other part of the diagnosis. And here we see some tangles. There are some medications and even some PET scans that can now identify, based on tau, they can have PET scans that show us what is the content of tangles as well. And in fact, we are actually doing those as well. In some of our Alzheimer's studies, we're doing both amyloid PET scans and tau PET scans. And this is an example of the tau PET scans. And it's a similar story. If you look at the healthy, there's not any evidence of the tau, the tangles. And here, a mild cognitive impairment, there's some, But then when you get mild Alzheimer's, there's a lot, and then when you get to severe Alzheimer's, you can see the content. But one of the things that we've learned, which clinically is interesting, is that the amyloid PET scan is abnormal really at the beginning of the Alzheimer's illness, but the tau builds up over the years of the illness. Now, how you interpret that, I'm not sure. Some people think since the plaques appear first, maybe they're in some way causing the tangles, but that's still research that's underway. Then what I want to talk about now is these treatments. These are any medication that ends up with MAB. It means monoclonal antibody. And there are such medicines for psoriasis and for all kinds of illnesses, rheumatoid arthritis and so on. But in our case, our monoclonal antibodies have been designed to go into the brain, find the plaque, eat it up and get rid of it. And we proved in this study, which was of mild and moderate patients, that this drug could remove the plaques. And we also found another interesting fact, which was when we looked at the APOE4 patients, the ones who had that genetic measure, compared with the ones who were not APOE4, there was a completely different dosage required for the APOE4 patients, and the APOE4 patients also had more side effects. So it was an interesting exercise in the application of genetic findings that we realized that there was like two studies we were doing. One was for APOE4 and the others for the non-APOE4 carriers, which is another interesting aspect of what our clinical activity will be like in the future, where genetic studies will actually matter. So what happened in a mouse was when they looked at a mouse blood vessel in the brain, this was before bapineuzumab, and this is after. You can see all the plaque, or most of it is gone. It's removing the plaque, which actually caused a problem for us, because if you're removing plaque from the vessels in the brain, then there's going to be leakage and edema in the brains of these patients. And we automatically did MRI scans of all our patients. And often we would find the swelling, but no symptoms. And so it wasn't a big deal, but it was an interesting aspect of it. And the patients that had the findings, we'd stop the treatment and give time for the swelling to go away, and then we go back and do treatment without any harm to the patient. And similar story, this got published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Again, I wasn't informed that I was going to be named somewhere, but underneath, these are all the people who were considered authors, and in this paper, they also acknowledged the people like myself who had done the work. So the next one up, by the way, something important I should have mentioned. What I wanted to tell you is here, when the results came out and sent to the FDA did not approve the study because the plaques were removed. They agreed with that, but what we could not show was a clinical benefit. So the problem was that we were removing the plaques too late in the illness. However, when the company studied only the mildly demented patients, they did have a clinical benefit. They had a decline which was like normal aging, the ones who were on the medication, and the ones who were on placebo had the rapid decline that you get in Alzheimer's. However, you can't change your mind after you submit a study to the FDA. Whatever you said up front is what they deal with. So they weren't going to allow the company to take out just the mild findings and say, yes, you can use this drug. So the next one up was solanezumab, and it was learned from the previous study that using this type of medicine in moderate dementia was not going to be helpful. So from that point, the study was, and the findings for this study I don't think have yet been released. And then we came up with aducanumab, which was now looking not only at mild dementia, but actually going to mild cognitive impairment. And then this is another drug that we've been using. It's not a monoclonal antibody, but it's based on an enzyme in the brain, and it's called, we refer to it as BACE, BACE1. And what happens is in the brain there's this large molecule, and it's the amyloid precursor protein, and the enzyme breaks it here, and then this part of the large molecule is what the brain uses to build plaque. And so what this study is about is that they have designed a medication that blocks that enzyme. Therefore, the building blocks for Alzheimer's just don't get created. So here we're attacking the problem at the beginning of the plaque creation, and the previous studies were waiting till the plaques were there and then trying to remove them. Now, if these two studies all work, then I can imagine clinical patients will get both treatments at the same time. Anyway, I think that is self-explanatory. I won't go back to that. And then finally, another idea that was the basis for this study. This drug is actually in some way derived from melatonin. And the idea of that is that when we're in deep sleep, our brain does its housekeeping, and it clears out a lot of these brain small molecules that build plaque. And if you don't get deep sleep, then it results in a build-up of plaque. And their drug is designed simply to give patients who are developing Alzheimer's the benefit of having deep sleep so that the brain can actually do its work and get rid of these molecules. Now, that's a very early study. We were offered the chance to do it, but there's some kind of a hold-up, and maybe they're not going to continue with it. And so the other thing, as well as clearing the amyloid peptide, in deep sleep we consolidate our memory, and if you're not having deep sleep, then you're not going to have the memories available to you the next day or afterwards. And this is the last slide, and these are my three colleagues. Some of you already met Christy, who was in the chair for the TMS procedure. And then this is Tracy, and she's my lead coordinator, and especially in the Alzheimer's studies. And this is Susan, and she's an administrator who does a lot of the appointments and so on, but she also does many tests in our various studies, including the Alzheimer's studies. So that's the end of my talk. If there are any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. What do you think about the time difference between the formation of plaques in the brain and the clinical findings or symptoms?
Yeah, I really don't know, but it's a very good question. It's something we should be trying to study. But as I said, it seems like, well, when the Alzheimer's patients are at the beginning of their illness and we do the PET scan, this overload is already there. And it doesn't increase that much throughout the progress. Well, that's why we need studies like the mild cognitive impairment studies. And as I also said, we know that once we turn 40, we already are starting to have plaques. So I don't know the answer to your question, but it's a very worthwhile thing to study, and we now are doing more and more of these kinds of studies.
Thank you.
Well, I think I will end there because I don't seem to have prompted any questions. Here's one more.
Okay. Thank you very much for your good presentation. I know that some scientists investigate a relationship between tangles and plaques and Alzheimer's diseases. And they didn't find any relationship. And if somebody clean all the plaques and tangles, they couldn't stop the progression of the disease. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure what studies they're referring to, but we have, with this kind of work, shown that some of the patients do benefit from the active drug. And the drug was doing what you said, like removing the plaques. I don't know of any studies that have been done looking at the tangles, but also I did say that the tau PET scans show that early in the Alzheimer's dementia, they don't have that many tangles. It's as that in that period of development of the disease, the tau builds up. I mean, we don't actually know, are they in parallel? Does one cause the other? And we also don't know, is it only the plaques that cause the memory loss, or is it only the tangles, or is it the combination? I think, you know, we do see that the plaques are located in the areas of the brain that we know are taking care of memory. So there's a lot of, you know, it makes sense to think that they are related. But again, I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know that any good research has been done yet. But I think now the opportunity exists where we can actually look at those kinds of questions.
Norman, there was an exciting progress in terms of Alzheimer's treatment. There was a vaccination. Is there any progress about that nowadays?
That I'm not totally up to date on, but I think the injections turned out to have very unacceptable side effects. They were injections, weren't they, of antibodies? Am I correct about that? Yeah, I remember that. And these antibodies, there's a lot more to talk about in that whole history, but the injected antibodies caused serious side effects. And then the bapineuzumab, the first one that we studied, the antibodies were penetrating the brain and doing their work there, but some of the subsequent antibody treatments that we used were working at a distance, and they were removing products in the spinal fluid, and in a sort of diluting method, as the spinal fluid contents disappeared, then they were sort of sucking out the plaques. And so they're coming up with ways to avoid the possible side effects. Now, the side effects of even the bapineuzumab were not as serious as would stop you using the drug. I mentioned already that they cause some swelling of the brain. They also cause some hemorrhages, microhemorrhages. And these were watched carefully as well. And I'm not aware of any, I could be wrong, I don't think there were deaths, and there were no big alarms went up. You know, every time such a patient would be reported, we'd get a message from the company sponsoring the study saying no changes in our protocol or in our practice are being made because of this finding. So they never it never got to the level where people were really concerned about it, including the FDA. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Actually, I'm not from the medical side, but I would like to know more information about deep sleep and Alzheimer, if it is possible.
Again, the results are not in. I'm just telling you about a company that's convinced that this matters and they want to study it. Now, studying something doesn't mean to say they're going to find that their hypothesis is true. But we do know for sure that in deep sleep, your brain does a lot of work in cleaning out these peptides that are subsequently going to cause plaque. So that's true. And then the other thing we know is true is that you do consolidate your memories in deep sleep. So it just makes sense if the Alzheimer's patients are not getting deep sleep, which they're not, we know that. If you can do something to correct that, you would hope it would help. But it's not at the point yet where we can actually give you an answer to whether that will work or not. Another study that I did, because I think we don't, as psychiatrists, pay enough attention to sleep. I really believe that. And I did a study where I treated fibromyalgia patients with a drug called quetiapine, and that's an antipsychotic. It's not a pain medicine. And these patients had, many of them, been treated with standard pain medicines, including even opiates. And they had not responded. And guess what? When I gave them the quetiapine, they did respond. Their pain got less and so on. And then I was left with a question in my mind, and I'm going to publish this paper. How do I explain that? I mean, they're not pain medicines, and yet they're getting relief. Well, we also know in fibromyalgia that something called substance P is abnormally high in fibromyalgia patients. And we also know that deep sleep is when the brain resets all of your hormones and all of these things, including substance P. And so these fibromyalgia patients are not getting deep sleep. We know that too. And so my speculation is that the reason that the drug worked was that it was giving them deep sleep, their brain was doing what it should have done, keeping the substance P levels down, but with the substance P way, way, way too high, then even a touch, like how you diagnose fibromyalgia, would be painful for them. And so I wish that when I designed the study I had included sleep studies. I didn't. And measuring substance P would have been good, but substance P, you can only measure that with spinal taps, so it gets more and more complicated. But it was a good study because it threw up some ideas for further research. So I think that sleep is very important. Another example of why it's important, and I'm glad that you brought this up, if you have sleep apnea, that interferes with your memory. And when you have a new patient come to see you who's asking for help with a memory loss, one of the important questions is to find out if they have the symptoms of sleep apnea. Because if you're not sleeping at night because of sleep apnea, then during the day you have these mini sleeps that you're not even aware of. And you're not taking in all the information that's around you, so you're not going to remember it. And one of the best ways to help a memory loss patient is to diagnose sleep apnea, send them and get them treatment, and they'll do quite well, So these are things that we neglect now in psychiatry. I think sleep studies are more important than we have realized, and I hope we'll get back to doing those again. Well, you've been a very kind audience, and I appreciate you all coming out to be part of this ceremony. Thank you very much.
We thank Professor Moore for his lecture. I would like to invite the Vice President, Professor Mehmet Zelka, and Vice President, Professor Muhsin Konuk, and Professor Mehmet Professor Kemal Arıkan on stage to give the presentment of the day to Professor Norman Moore. Profesör Moore'a sunumu için teşekkür ediyorum. Bugünün anısına Sayın Moore'a bir takdimimiz... Bir dakika dur. Söyledim. Geçmek zorundayım. Şunu kapatsın o zaman. Şunu kapatsın.
Very humbled by it all.
Sorun.
So I was concentrating on doing the talk about Alzheimer's, and I regret that I didn't tell you all that I've had the opportunity to visit the university and also this hospital. And I've told Professor Tarhan many times that there's nothing like this that I've come across. Oh, you need to translate. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yani konuşmama çok fazla daldım ama bu geldiğim üniversite ve hastane ile ilgili çok fazla şey söyleyemedim. Bence çok harika bir yer olmuş. Ben daha önce hiç böyle bir şey görmedim.
So I've told Professor Tarhan many times in the past about his previous, well, he still has the other hospital, but I used to say it was a model for what we should be doing all over the world. I've traveled and worked in very many countries and seen lots of institutions, the Maudsley Hospital in London, for example, and big hospitals in the USA, Australia, all kinds of places. I've just not seen anything like he had before. And then come this time and see that he's even excelled and produced something even more remarkable than the first hospital.
Evet, zaten Nevzat Tarhan'ın daha önce kurduğu hastaneye ben gelmiştim ve o zaman bile bunun işte ABD'de ve İngiltere'de ve Avustralya'da bir benzerinin olmadığını görmüştüm ama bu sefer geldiğimde gördüm ki daha da geliştirmiş bu durumu. O nedenle bunun şu anda dünyada hiçbir benzeri yok.
Not only is it impressive scientifically, but it's a beautiful architecture. And when I mentioned that to someone, they said it was actually Professor Tarhan's wife. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Was the architect?
Yeah.
So, sister.
Sadece bilimsel olarak etkilenmedim, aynı zamanda mimari olarak ama mimarı da Nevzat Bey'in kız kardeşiymiş. Oradan.
So it's a double honor for them that we find it so remarkable. But he has everything here that will make science work. I'm repeating some of the things I've said to my colleagues, so they have to forgive me for saying it again, but I was at a meeting just before I came here about TMS.
Yani burada bilimin üretilmesi, yapılması için her şey var. Bir kez daha tekrar edeceğim ama buraya gelmeden önce TMO, transkranial manyetik uyarı ile ilgili bir toplantıdaydım.
And what was reported at that meeting just a week ago was that functional MRI is capable of separating depression into different types. And I was just thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great to have functional MRI to do that, and then follow-up studies with EEG and various blood products and so on.
Evet, orada şu konuşulmuştu, fonksiyonel MR depresyonu tiplerine ayırabiliyor ve buradan yola çıkıp depresyonu tiplerine ayırıp çeşitli biyokimyasal çalışmalarla devam edilebilir diye düşündüm.
And then when I do the tour, what do I find? That they've got functional MRI here. And so I talked to Dr. Tarhan about this study that was so important. And now that I'm a member of your university, I hope there'll be an opportunity for us to communicate about replicating that kind of work, which in itself would lead to lots of other even more important studies.
Evet. Daha sonra gördüm ki buraya gelince burada fonksiyonel MR çalışmaları yapılıyor. Ben de Nevzat Bey'e bu çalışmaları daha önce yapılmış ve depresyonda fonksiyonel MR çalışmalarının benzerlerini burada da yapabiliriz diye önerdim.
And the last thing that I admire about the progress that you've all made is that I have always wanted psychiatry to be integrated into the rest of medicine.
Ben her zaman psikiyatrinin diğer tıp bölümlerinden ayrılmaması ve onlarla tümleşik olması gerektiğini savundum.
However, my thinking was to be more integrated with neurology.
Evet.
But here it's not just neurology, but all of the other disorders. And of course, I'll say one more thing after you finish. You go ahead.
Aslında ben bu tümleşik böyle beraber olmasını kastederken nörolojiyi kastetmiştim ama buraya gelince sadece nöroloji değil bütün diğer tıp dallarıyla birleşmiş olduğunu gördüm.
So when I teach my medical students at my university, I particularly concentrate on the ones who are not interested in going into psychiatry. And I tell them that you'll see more psychiatry as a non-psychiatrist than the people who are going into psychiatry. And you really need to know all about it. So, could you say that?
Ben tıp fakültesinde psikiyatri öğrencilerine ders anlatırken özellikle psikiyatrist olmak istemeyenlere daha çok şey öğretmeye çalışıyorum. Çünkü bunların diğerlerinden daha fazla psikiyatri hastası göreceğini düşünüyorum.
And I think this integration that you see here in this university and in this hospital is excellent. I think it will improve medicine from both sides.
Nedenle buradaki bu hastanedeki entegrasyon çok önemli ve ilişkileri her yönden bilimsel işbirliğini güçlendirecektir diye düşünüyorum.
So I'm really in awe of what you all have achieved, and I think you're leaders in this particular field.
Evet, bence bu hastane bu özel konuda liderliği almış durumda dünyada. Bu nedenle bu başarınızdan dolayı hepinizi kutluyorum diyor.
Sayın konuklar, toplu fotoğraf çekimi için sizleri sahneye davet ediyoruz. Dear guests, please join us on stage for a family photo.
Sizler gözüküyor musunuz?
Gerek yok.